B'Shem Hashem Naseh Naseach. This morning is Chaf Chet Adar Tavshin Peh Haba Alenu Tova. We're having another Limud Kolel Chasod dedicated for many causes, especially for Ilui Nishmat, my mother Alaiha Shalom, whose Yorosite is going to be this Shabbat Chaf Tet Adar. So Bezat Hashem, this should be Ilun Nishmata, Marat Imi, Rana, Helen, Bat, Shamsi, Baba. Okay, I thought to myself, what is good to be learned? So Bezat Hashem, there is a discussion in Masechet Meghila Daf Chaf Zayin Amud Bet that talks about what helps a person to have Arichot Yamim, long life. Now, Masechet Megillah, as we know, talks about many discussions, many topics, and one of the things that our Chachamim teach us is that what perhaps could have been the Zechut of Esther that was able, Esther Hamarka, that was able to be a queen over 127 countries and to make such a big difference for Am Israel, was that she never neglected in the mitzvot of Kivud Avim. So our rabbis teach us it is impossible for a person not to be mistaken and not to make mistakes with Kivud Avim, unless a person would never have that challenge, lo alenu, which means the challenge of not having, not to be challenged with having parents. So once a person has parents and is blessed to have parents, living parents, then there is always this challenge of respecting them, and it's one of the mitzvot that our Chachamim teach us that if you respect your parents properly, you'll be blessed with long, fruitful life. So this discussion starts here. Chaf Zayin Amud Bet. Shalu Tamidav Shel Rabbi Zakai, that students of Rabbi Zakai asked him, Bama harichta yamim, what caused you to have a long life? Apparently, Rav Zakai was living, and he was very old. So they asked him, "What caused you to be so old?" Amar lahem miyamai lo ishtanti ma'im betoch arba amot shel tefillah. So explained, I never relieved myself where I was in the proximity of where I prayed. Now, in the older days, they didn't have access to restroom that easy, and Gemara talks about it in many discussions that it could be a health issue, especially to men, right? So he says that he was makpid, so he was strict not to be in that proximity. Velo kiniti shel chaveri, and I never had kiniti. What is kiniti exactly? Kiniti is jealousy. No, yes, that's right. Kinui. I never called my friends with nicknames. Right, nicknames, like they call it, hey shorty, or hey, all sorts of things they call. Velo bitalti Kiddush Hayom, and I never nullified the Kiddush Hayom. What is Kiddush Hayom exactly? I believe Kiddush Hayom refers to actual Kiddush, the Kiddush of Shabbat. The Gemara is going to talk about it. Now, Gemara says, Imazagana hayatali. So he goes on to explain, this is Rabbi Zakai that that I have an old mother. Pam Achad, one time um, that we didn't have wine. Machra kippah sheberusha. So it says, my mother, one time we didn't have wine, and she sold her head covering, her kippah. Now, obviously, she had some other forms of covering her hair, but she sold it in order to have money to buy wine. And she brought me that money that I should obtain wine with it for Kiddush Hayom. Because she knew, my mother knew how important it is to make Kiddush on wine for Shabbat. Tana. Now there is another writer here explains. כשמתה הניחה לו שלא מאות גרבי. So when she died, she put for him in her inheritance, Yerusha, שלא מאות גרבי yain, shalosh meot garbe yain, that is a lot of wine. So I believe this is the equivalent of the money, right? Or maybe actual wine. Keshemethu. Now it says when Rabbi Zakkai died, hiniach lebanav, he left for his sons beyerusha shalosh alafim garbe yain. So the mother put only 300 garbe yain, and Rav Zakkai, when he died, he put 3,000 garbe yain for his sons to have. That this way they would surely have enough wine to for Kiddush. So from here we learn a lesson. One of the things that helps a person to have a long life, to make Kiddush on wine. That's one of the lessons. That's perhaps lesson number one. No, this is lesson number one was not to relieve yourself where you pray. Now these days this really doesn't apply, because Baruch Hashem we have access to restrooms, and we have Bate Knesset, Bate Midrashot, and we keep it very holy. Right? So another thing that we learn here is to use wine to make Kiddush, and the importance of using wine to make Kiddush. I'm not exactly sure if grape juice is not within that category, because especially these days the wine that we use is very much diluted, and many poskim bring that making Kiddush on grape juice is much better than wine.
Wine or drugs? Wine. Which one is better, wine or?
No, the bracha on wine could be problematic sometimes because they dilute it.
The wine will be problematic?
Yes, they dilute the wines, but the grape juice is 100%.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Harav Eliyahu Tanishalitah always talks about this, but there is this grape juice that is called light grape juice, that perhaps for Sephardim is not so good. Some say that even for Sephardim, even though that is light, still is good. Now, cheap wines are very much problematic because they dilute it with water. And the bracha, especially for Sephardim, could be shakol. It could be shakol. Now, according to Harambam, one should have wine. One should make Kiddush on a wine that is not mevushal, that is ra'ui, that is proper to be brought to mizbeach, because wine that is cooked wine mevushal is not ra'ui to be brought to Mizbeach. So one who wants to be Yoseh Rambam should use non-mevushal wine that is not so diluted with water, or what he can do, he can use these non-mevushal grape juice that come in a glass containers, right, and are made by Kedem, or some maybe perhaps other companies also make it. I haven't seen it, but that is the best to have, right? And one who wants to have a little bit alcohol could mix it with a little bit of wine, and this way has a non-mevushal grape juice with a little bit of wine that could add some alcohol to it. Okay, now Gemara goes on to explain a little bit further. It says, Sha'alu Talmidav Shel Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. That's a little bit further. So the Rabbi Elazar's students asked him, Bama herachta yamim? What is the zechut that you have to have a long life? What merit you have? Amar lahem, he answered, Miyamai lo ashiti karpandra le beta knesset. I never use beta knesset as a shortcut to get from point A to point B. For example, if the Beta Knesset is between two streets, I didn't enter to the Beta Knesset, that this way I would go from the Beta Knesset to my destination, and to get there, using a shortcut, the Beta Knesset as a shortcut. Velo pasati ar rashai. So that's another, so we see this is segula number 3. Don't use Beta Knesset as a shortcut. Now, halacha prohibits this as well. It's not just a segula. Halacha says that it's asur to make Beta Knesset a shortcut. Velo pasati al rashei am kadosh. Now, in the older days, Talmidim would sit on the floor. They didn't have chairs like our days so much, right? And of course, it wasn't bare for a floor. They would sit on a covered floor, perhaps with a rug or some sort of a floor carpeting. And so he says, whenever he had to pass through Talmidim, he would not like step over the head of the Talmidim, if I correctly understand here, right? Because first of all, that is disrespect, and let me see here. So there is a Rashi in Masachet Sota that explains about this stuff. Lamed Tet Amud Aleph, that this would be a disrespect to Talmidei Chachamim. So he would not disrespect them by walking over, not just walking over the heads of the Talmidim while they were sitting. He wouldn't do that. So that's another segula. Do not walk over a person. In Iran, I remember that my mother, alayha shalom, was very careful about this. And as a child, when I was a child, she would tell me, don't jump over your brother or your sister, right? Don't do that. So maybe they knew this Gemara before. I don't know.
Somewhere said that he would always come early, so you don't have to go through all.
He would always come early.
Yeah,
so the explanation
also,
so there is another explanation here that he used to always come early to Beit Midrash. Right, I think we're going to see that one who comes early to Beit Midrash, Beit Knesset, is the segula to have a long life.
Also, he doesn't have to go over.
And also doesn't have to go through the Talmidim. Hazak Baruch. Right? Velona Sati Kapai. Right? And another thing, he says that I never picked up my hands, the Birkat Kohenim, below Beracha. In other words, when he would raise his hand, now some people have this hakpada also. They don't raise their hand above their shoulders. I heard this, I learned this from Harav Eliezer ben David alav shalom, right? Not to do like this for no reason, right? So from here is mashma, as a kohen, he would not raise his hands above his shoulder unless he would give a beracha. Right? I don't know if I need to research this further. Was he a kohen or not? Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. Okay, it appears, right, that he would not bring his hands in front of his face unless he would use it. He would do that to give birkat kohanim. Okay. Now Gemara goes on to explain further. Shalu Tamidav Shel Rabbi Perida, another Rab. The students of Rabbi Perida asked him, "Bama harachta yamim? What caused you to leave long?" Amar lahem yamai lo qidmane adam lebet midrash. That never I allowed anyone to be before me coming to Bet Midrash. And he was the first one coming to Bet Midrash. Our Chachamim teach us that whoever is first is getting the sechar of others, right? Because he's the one who is causing the Shekhinah to reside in that place. So Segula number 6, be one of the first ones coming to Bet HaKnesset. Segula number 7, Velo berachti lifnei HaKohen, and I never said nevarech. I never said nevarech where if there was a kohen, right, among us for to make a nevarech. You are supposed to respect the kohenim, right? We have here 2 kohenim. May Hashem increase our kohenim. Bezat Hashem, kohenim are to be respected very much. When we had the Beit HaMikdash, we would bring terumot, masrot, and the respect of kohenim was more, understood. These days that we don't have Beit HaMikdash be'avonotenu arabim, we need to respect them by giving them the beracha rishona of the Torah readings, right? And also we need to give them the zechut of making nevarech, to praise Hashem when there is birkat hamazon in the presence of 3 men at least over the bar mitzvah, right? Or it could be that when they come to Bet HaKnesset or other places, you respect them by giving them kavod. Okay, so he would tell the kohenim, you go ahead and make the nevarech. Velo achalti mi behema shelo churmo matnoteiha. So he would not eat from animals unless the sections that need to be separated to be given to the kohenim, whereas the matanot of the kohenim were separated from. So again, this is another way of showing your respect to kohenim. That is the segula number 8. The Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Yitzchak says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Asur le'echol mi behema shelo hurmo matnonteha, that it is prohibited to eat from an animal. Obviously, this is a slaughtered animal that is kirat kosher for Sfadim Bet Yosef. That unless those sections of that are gifted to the kohenim were already gifted, right? Correct?
I'm sorry?
Is that correct?
What was that?
No. So it says that the limbs were gifted to the kohenim, and then he would come to consume it.
Yes.
V'amar Rabbi Yitzchak, kol ha'ochel mi behema shelo hurmu, as we said, keilu. Rabbi Yitzchak says, whoever eats from animal that those sections have not been separated to be given to the kohenim, keilu ochel tevalim. It is equivalent of eating from tevel. Tevel, one should not be eating tevel, right? What is tevel? Tevel is the perot that she'ena me'usarim, that it hasn't, the maaser hasn't been separated from, and it's also to eat from a fruit of Eretz Israel that maaser, the one tenth hasn't been separated. Velo hilichta kavayte elahoilu matanot kehunot elu mugrarot. So this way they would, it says, Rabbi Yitzchak says, it is equivalent to having from a fruit that maaser hasn't been separated from, the same isur. So you get an animal, make sure that those limbs of the animal that are separated for kohanim are separated first, and then eat from that meat. Okay? So the Gemara goes on to explain that which Rabbi Perida used to do. Velo berachti lifnei kohen, and I did not say beracha before kohen. Lememar deman laihu hi. So which means vechi nemar hanhagata zo ma'alahi. This hanhaga was very important. What does that mean? Veha amar Rabbi Yochanan kol talmid chacham shemevarech לפניו אפילו כהן גדול עם הארץ אותו תלמיד חכם חייב מיתה. So the Gemara says, what are you saying? Right? This we already know. We know from another source, right? Beshem Rabbi Yochanan, that if there is a Kohen Gadol that is Amharis, that is not educated, is not Shomer Torah and Mitzvot, he doesn't know better, right? And a Talmid Chacham, they're eating together, and there is a Chiyuv of Nevarech, you must give that Chiyuv to the Kohen Gadol. Even if the Kohen Gadol is Amharis, is not educated, right? And if Talmid Chacham goes to say the Beracha, Chas v'shalom lo aleinu, he would be punished with chayab mita b'dei shamayim. He would become chayab mita. He would be chayab mita. I believe this would be chayab mita of b'dei shamayim. Zayin minhago hu shemi sheyeshno menacha moedet l'Hashemah omer chasi ben no. That's one. Okay, so let's go on further. So this another article مثلا שבכך התלמיד חכם מכבד את הכהן עם הארץ לברך לפניו גורם הוא לבריות לשונות לשונא את המליות. Now it has said now, so it says, oh, if that's the case, then there is a problem here. If you come respect a Kohen Gadol like that, right, you're going to cause people to hate such a Kohen Gadol, not a Kohen Gadol, such a Kohen. So why he did that? Ki Amar Ihu, Ma'ushamar Rab, Lo Berachti Lifnei Kohen, Kavana, Beshavin, Kasher Hu Kohen. So the Gemara explains, no. The only time that one should allow the Kohen to make the Nevarech is when that Kohen is holding there, is not Amhares, right? And if there is a Talmid Chacham there, and the Kohen, they are on the same level, then the Kohen should go ahead and make the Nevarech. Not just a Kohen that is Amhares, no, rather somebody who has who is on the same madriga, same level of Torah, like the Chacham. Shalnu Talmidav Shel Rabbi Nechemiah ben Hakana. So the Talmidim of Rabbi Nechemiah ben Hakana asked the question, Bama harich yamim? What caused you to live long? Amar lahem yamai lo nitkavti beqolon chaverai. Nitkavti beqolon chaverai velo alta al mitati qilalt chaverai. So in other words, over here, right, he never had jealousy, right? he never had jealousy over his friend. Right? Miyamai lo nit kavadti biqlon chaverai velo alta al mitati qilqlat chaverai, and I never went to sleep, right, having jealousy over my friend. Right? Vaitran bemamoni haiti. I was a vaitran, I was mevater. I would say, I allow that which my friend did to me to be forgiven. I let him have it. Right? So that's why one of the reasons that we have in the Qiriyat Shema al-Amita, that we forgive others who were chote to us. Is good to be mevater, right? So that's another segula. You want to live long, be mevater. Don't have jealousy, right? Don't take that within. It makes one's life shorter. That's number 9. Velo nichravti beqlon chaverai. Gemara explains ki had Rav Huna dar Mara Afduna. Ata Rav Chana bar Chaliyai vecha dare minei. Amale I regilat veimlo. So this explains. Asad keli kaze b'mgomach sherach nim en atar ragil. Asad keli kaze b'mgomam hare k'churei ana biziluta dida velo nichali en nochach li leitchabed b'bizunecha. So Gemara brings a story, right, that this Rav did not take advantage of making something that would be a bizayon, right? I do not want to be honored with bringing bizayon to you. Right? Is that the understanding of that master? I think so. Velo alta al mitati. So Gemara goes on to explain. What does that mean? That he did not go to sleep unless he would forgive his friend. He would not have in awe over his friend. If my friend brought bizayon to me, right, I would forgive him before I would go to sleep. Right? So again, that's important. Forgive your friends before going to sleep. Okay. Now a little bit further down. Sha'a Rabbi Akiva et Rabbi Nechonia Hagadol. Rabbi Akiva asked Rabbi Nechonia Hagadol, Bama ha'erechta yamim. What caused you to live long? Atu gavaize. So ba'u mesharte Rabbi Nechonia beqa ma chulei והלכו את רבי עקיבא שהיו סבורים שרבי עקיבא חס בחייו של רבי נחוניה. So if I understand this correctly, apparently they thought that Rabbi Akiva, not sure exactly, Rabbi Akiva was intending the helpers of Nehemiah came and to say, as if to come defend the Rav, right? What do you mean? He lived long, like you jealous? Maybe, is that right?
Yeah,
something like that.
Beat him.
They came to protect the Rav Nehemiah. Salih Yatev Aresha Dedigla. So Tefas Rabbi Akiva Vayoshev Ar Rosh Deqal. So Rabbi Akiva apparently he sat down, right?
Yeah, on top of the palm tree.
He out of the fear of them, Rabbi Akiva went up to the top of the palm tree. Interesting story. Amalei. So he asked Rabbi Nechonia, Rabbi, Im Nemar Keves Lama Nemar Echad. if it says keves, why does it say echad? Right? It's already clear that keves refers to one. Amar lehu, Rab Nechemiah answered, Surba min Rabbanan hu, shabaquhu. Right? The subu Talmid Chacham hu, henichulo. So Rab Nechemiah says, look, Rabbi Akiva is a Talmid Chacham that he's asking such a question, right? Leave him alone. Amaleh. Rab Nechemiah told Rabbi Akiva, Echad. Now he answers him. Echad. We learn Anu shekeves sarich leyod miyuchad shebe'erdo. When it says keves echad means when you bringing this keves as a korban, right? Is that right? It refers to the korban, I believe. This korban needs to be exclusively chosen to be offered as a sacrifice. Right? Shebe'erdo amalei. Nechemiah says to Rabbi Akiva. Now he answers him. What caused him to live long? And this would be the segula number 10. Miyamai lo qibalti matanot velo amati al midotai. Two things that in my life I never accepted gifts. Right? As we say, Soneh, as Chachamim teach us, Soneh matanot yichye. One who hates gifts, he would live. Velo amati al midotai. And segula number 11. Right? I never took revenge. Right? Leshalem gimor ra lemi shesiarni. I did not, right, take revenge, right, over a person who caused loss to me or sufferings to me, right? I'll forgive him, right? Vaitran b'mamoni haiti. And I was a mevater. Right? I would forgive even at the expense of losing my money, right? Lo qibalti matanot. So the Gemara explains what the matanot means. It explains that the Gemara goes on to explain a story that one time they invited, the in-laws invited, and he said at the point that he wouldn't go to eat by the in-laws, not to be accepting the gifts. Now that's something that I'm not recommending, not to eat by your in-laws. You need to have the respect, right? Right. And so let's go on further, a little bit further, and that Gemara, we are up to Chaf Chet Amud Aleph. Sha'ar Rabbi et Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha b'ma harachta. So another question, this time by Rabbi, from Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha. What caused you to live long? And this would be number 12 in this Gemara. Amalo. So he answered, Gasta b'chai. Amalo. So he's saying, Sheshoelet ata b'mai achli yamim. Amalo Rabbi Torahi velimdod ani sarich. So he said, why are you asking this? Like you want me to live? You don't want me to live longer? He said, no, Rabbi, I want to learn. So he says, he answers like this: Amalo miyamai lo nis takalti bidmot adam rasha. Oh, this is another important thing, that in my whole life I never looked at the face of a wicked person. Right? You see a rasha. Now, to understand what rasha means, according to some Rabbanim, rasha is a person who has more averot than misfot. Right? I never looked at the face of the wicked person. Now, some explain that niskalti.
How do you know it's rasha?
Huh?
How do you know it's rasha?
Good question. How do you know a person is rasha? Very good question.
How do you know?
Very good question. Maybe his kalarti means I never focused. I never, looked very deep in one's face. Now you pay attention. Some gedolim, they don't look up so much, right? They don't. I've noticed that. Yes. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, אסור לאדם להסתכל בצלם דמות אדם רשע. That Rabbi Hanan says that it's prohibited to look at the face, right? And this is a Selem demut Adam Rasha, the face of a Rasha. Now some say one should not look at even the pictures of the Rashaim, right? Yeah, so that comes to translate, do not watch news so much, right? Beside the fact that it's so much Bitul Torah, Bitul Zaman, right? Don't look at the face of the Rashaim, right? Lulei, as it says, Shenemar, as it says, Layhudim, right? Shama Layhudim ben, sorry, Leyehorim, Leyehoram ben Achab, Lulei, Panai, Yoshafat Melech Yehuda, Ani, Noste im Avid Elecha, Veim Erecha. So I think from this pasuk is mashma that if I would have not looked at the face of the Melech Yehuda, Yehoshaphat Melech Yehuda, then Ani nosat et avit elecha ve'im erecha. Not sure exactly. Maybe if I would have not looked, I would have lived longer. Is that what it means? Yehoshaphat Melech Yehuda. Maybe he wasn't a great Melech. Let's see if the Mefarshim say anything there. So till we find out, Gemara goes on to explain. If a person looks at the face of a Rasha, his eyes will diminish, right? His eyes would lose its sight, right? It's not good for one's eyes to look at the Rashaim, right? Now Gemara goes on to explain, because Yitzchak Avinu, towards the end of his life, his eyes became very weak. And they say, why is that? Mishom deistakel be'esav harasha. Because Yitzchak Avinu was forced to look at the face of his son, Esav harasha. Right? Now there is another source that says, by Akedat Yitzchak, when the Malachim cried, the tears of the Malachim went into the eyes of Yitzchak Avinu, and that caused his eyes to become weak, right? The Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Now it's interesting. We're talking about Yitzchak Avinu, and now Gemara brings that which Rabbi Yitzchak says, Le'olam, always, al tehi qilalt hediyot qalla be'einecha. If a hediyot, if an empty head comes and curses you, lo aleinu chas v'shalom, right? Don't take that lightly. So immediately say chas v'shalom. Don't say, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about, or his words has no power. Why? Shahare Avimelech qilel et Sarah. That Avimelech, the king of Egypt, right, gave a curse to Sarah Imenu. Right? That your eyes should diminish, should become weak. When it didn't happen to her, but it happened, it came through to Yitzchak Avinu. Now somebody had a question, what does that mean? That the Malachim cried and the tears of Malachim went into Yitzchak Avinu's eyes? Malachim do not have tears. Right? What does that mean? Something to study. Shenemar, Hine, Hu, Lach, Kisud, Enayim. So they explain from this, Ad Tichle Kisud, Ella Kisiyat Enayim. So that caused his eyes to become weak. Ha veha gamalei. So the Gemara explains that both of these things caused Yitzchak Avinu's eyes to become weak. One, the fact that he saw Esav, and another, the Qilala of Avimelech. Right? Rava Amar. And so now let's go on further here. Now a little bit further, this is going to be Segula number 13, and we end with this one. Right? Bagasha Ladin, so Abua bar Ivi, Amal Tetli, Delo istakel bekuti. Okay. Delo istakeli bekuti. Now, Gemara explains another source that brings from Abua bar Ihi, that he would refrain from looking at the face of Kutim, that's Goim, right? Because perhaps the Goim are in the category of Reshaim. Vechad Amar, and another explanation is Temeli Shulam Sechari al Kech Delo Abadti Shutafot Behai Kuti. That really means he never had a partner with a Kuti, with a non-Jew. He always had a partnership only with a Jew. So that could be another thing that could make a person to have long life. Compares that as looking at the face of a Rasha, because you don't have a partner who is Rasha, so you have to deal with. Beside the fact that there could be many other issues. I know many who lost a lot of their capital, their money due to partnership in Iran with non-Jews. Yeah. Shalu Tamidav Shel Rabbi Zera. Now the students of Rabbi Zera asked him, Bama harachta yamim? Rabbi, what caused you to live long? Amal lahem yamai lo hiqpadti betoch beti. Another segula number 14, that he would never be makpid in his house. Like, oh, do this, do that. Oh, my son, you did this, right? You're not going to get this from me anymore. Or don't be so makpid with your household members. Velo sa'adti bifnei mi shegadol mimeni. Sa'adti, and I did not say divrei Torah in front of somebody who was greater than me. That's segula number 15. Somebody who is greater than you, allow him to say divrei Torah. Velo hirhadti. Another segula here, it says that causes a person to have long life, that he would not say divrei Torah in a place that was in the place of metunafot. There would be things that are considered disgusting, perhaps all sorts of metunafot that has smells. Right? One should not be saying divrei Torah next to a place that smells horrible, or other things that are metunaf. Belo halachti be'arba amot belo Torah. Segula number 17. I did not walk 4 amot, that's 2 meters, 8 feet, without divrei Torah. You want to have long life? Always think Torah. You're working, think Torah. Right? Below Torah, and not only that, without tefillin. He always wore his tefillin. Right? Wearing tefillin, segula number 18 would be. Right? Gives you long life. Velo yashanti bebet hamidrash. Velo shanta qeva, lo shenar qeva, velo shenar aray. And I did not sleep in Beit HaKnesset, right? And it says Beit Midrash. I did not sleep in Beit Midrash, right? For sure, one cannot be sleeping in Beit HaKnesset. But it says, even a Talmid Chacham that is allowed to sleep in Beit Midrash, he would refrain from sleeping in Beit Midrash, right? Even Shanat Arai, as taking nap, he would not take naps in Beit Midrash. That causes a person to live long, right? How much more so Shanat Qeva? Velo sasti etaqalai chaverai. Okay, and that's the gula number 20. Right? I never became happy when my friend had a downfall. Velo qarati lekhabarai. Again, also him, he would not call nicknames. So these are many interesting things that a person should observe. Obviously, we observe these things because it's good, and one should not do things to have to get rewards. We do it l'shem shamayim, but this should be another thing that a person would live long. Baruch Adonai leolam. Amen. Amen.